Oh, let's get ready for Monday Mortgage Minute with your hosts, Tom McNamara and Bruce Woodburn.
Good Monday morning.
It is Monday.
Yep, it is Monday. What a wild week. Hey, a lot of things happening out there in the industry. Rates have been all over the board, up one day, down the next day. It's so hard to determine where we're going right now. But one thing that we can agree on is the 21st Century Housing Act has passed. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with that, Tom.
Yeah, it's a huge piece of legislation. It's honestly, I think it's the largest housing impact legislation since the 60s, right? Since probably the Equal Housing Act, right? I mean, it's massive. It covers so many different things, but the biggest thing, the big headline grabber of it is the ban on corporate housing.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about that because, see, I personally don't think it's as big of a deal as you do. You think it's a little bigger deal. I didn't think that these corporations had that much control over that many cities. Now,
Sure.
what is the percentage of rental properties that they have here in, say, in Atlanta?
In Atlanta, my understanding it's around 20 to 25% of all rental properties, not all
That's a
property.
huge percentage of rental control. That
Yes.
is a massive percentage of rental control. And then I think Tampa has a fairly high percentage.
Tampa's in the teens, like 13 to 18%, I believe, somewhere around that, which is pretty strong. Orlando is behind that, but still high, significant, under 10, but a high single digit. And,
So I equate this to be tantamount to when America started off. You know what made America? Tobacco.
tobacco.
You know who the bad guy is today? Tobacco. So
Tobacco. Sure.
when we went into the recession, Blackstone and all them, if it wasn't for them buying out all the foreclosures, we wouldn't have had anybody to do it. So the government begged them to do that. They weren't even in that business. They begged them to do it. They did it. Now they're saying, whoa, slow down, big
Did a
boy.
little bit too much.
You got
Another thing
plenty.
that I look at, when we talk about, and you can argue it either way you want, right? You can argue that it has little impact. Here, I'll give you a stat. They own less than 1% of all the housing.
Okay. So
That's pretty low, right? But that's
so
a
let's
national number. That's a
all right.
national number that includes everywhere. When you boil it down to the Sun Belt, it's much bigger. And then when you get into certain markets like Atlanta, Jacksonville, Tampa, they're significant enough that they can actually control the rent prices for everyone to some degree, not just their
When
customers.
you control rent prices, you can control purchase prices too. There's a lot you
Absolutely.
can
That's
control in there. So
right.
let's just talk a little bit about what this act is even going to, how it's going to impact us. So it passed the House, it passed the Senate. Tell us a little bit about its little roadmap on where we are today.
Yeah, so it went into effect, I believe, July 10th or 11th. I forget the exact day, but that's the day that it was enacted. A lot of the stuff that's in there that's outside of what we're going to talk about. There's a lot of financing stuff. There's stuff about community block grants. They're removing the chassis requirement for mobile and manufactured homes, which I think is going to create not only lower cost, but create a little bit better product overall in that space.
It will help interest rates and it make them easier to get manufactured homes approved.
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. And I'll give you a side note when we talk about the actual ban, because mobile homes are a fun fact in there. But the other thing it does is it encourages local communities, counties, and cities to adopt zoning that allows for higher density, changes design of apartment complexes from what they call the single-stair rule, where they basically do all apartment complexes have this giant stairway all the way through. And it's because they have to have two exits, and it limits how apartments are designed. And so they're removing that rule, right, for up to a certain height. And so they're going to allow better design of apartments, which could actually give you higher density and safer at the same time and lower cost.
These things seem like they sound good when you say it fast, but that
Yep.
could take years. It could take
100%.
years to get this. You have things like they say we're going to help first-time homebuyers expand financing options, modernize HUD, removing barriers that delay mortgage approvals.
Yep.
You know what? We finally got in to a situation where we have prudent underwriting right now. I honestly feel like I have not had a loan denied by an underwriter that shouldn't have been denied. That's just it. I have had loans approved that I was suspect as to whether they would really go through. So our underwriting is flexible enough, but it's prudent enough. We don't want to go back to where we were during the recession, where we're making things too easy for people, where there's no skin in the game.
Yeah, I don't think any of I haven't gotten deep into that side of it yet. That's a side that I'll be getting into over a little bit of time. But yeah, to your point, we want to keep prudent underwriting, right? Because that's
Absolutely.
if we don't do that, we will experience 2008 again, right?
Yes,
We don't want that. So, but let's talk about this ban a little bit deeper, because it's interesting, right? What they did was they said they specifically call them large institutional investors, right? And then they cannot own more than 350 homes, period. Right?
Okay, so what I had heard they were going to do is split these companies up so they'd each now own 100 of them.
Yep. And so, of course, surprisingly, actually, not even of course, surprisingly, that was apparently brought up enough that they thought ahead and set up a system that would not allow them to do that. So it's based on per entity, per controller, right? So the idea was, okay, let's say Blackstone, the bad guy, right? Blackstone owns 60,000 homes. We'll just make 6,000 companies with 100 homes apiece and cover it, right? Which they already kind of do.
Yes, they do.
They don't have that many, but they have a lot. And so that was like, oh, we'll just break it up like that. No, they said as long as any one entity or controller has 25% equity, right? So if Blackstone owns XYZ LLC that owns 100 houses plus ABC LLC that also owns 100 houses, that's 200. And they can't break it up and hide it. They specifically they can allow trusts, but they need to know who the owner and the controller is of that trust, right?
Who's going to monitor that?
The Treasury Department, not HUD. Right?
Isn't that amazing?
The Treasury Department. And those sons of guns, man, they
don't play around.
They do not. They do not. And so this is going to stop them from buying single family homes. Okay. Now, that part of it doesn't take effect until January 27th. Whatever, it's 180 days from when it was enacted. Okay. So around the beginning of January 27th. I'm curious to see if they step up buying a bunch more houses between now and then or not. That'd be
interesting to see. Absolutely. Yeah. So how do they control that then for apartment complexes? They must be exempt from it because
100% exempt. Apartment complexes are exempt. They're multifamily. That's what they should be investing in, right? That's where they should be. They're also allowed to do build to rent. Okay. Now, at one point, there was some talk, I forget whether it was House or Senate, that wanted to eliminate that. Or they didn't want to eliminate it, but they wanted to force them to liquidate at 7 years. Okay.
Right.
And the problem with that, it sounds good. Oh, you'll create housing supply and then within 7 years you sell it. Those guys raise the money based on a 20-year investment or a 15-year investment, and then they're forced to sell at 7. That investment isn't going to sell. They're not going to build.
They were getting a lot of tax breaks for that too. They gave them a lot of incentives for these builders, because I've been to a couple of the builder meetings, and some of these big builders were very interested in building apartment complexes for rental that they would turn into condos, which is essentially be a condotel in some fashion, but
or condo convert
them up. But think about that. You get your CPA involved in that and look at the depreciation and all that you can get off of them and then sell these. They got these things worked out in the background. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So they eliminated that requirement. They can now build to rent and keep it forever. And that doesn't go against their 350 count because they built it. They purpose built it with their own money or their investors' money, and it's built. So they're not taking inventory out of the single family market. They're leaving that in there and they're adding rental inventory.
Yeah, but see, that doesn't seem to solve a problem anyway, because some of these big companies are going into these national builders and they'll just buy the whole subdivision.
That's different. That's different. This is build to rent, not I bought it from somebody that built it. So those are two different things. If I go and raise money, if I go and raise $100 million and I'm going to build 5,000 houses across 22 communities, whatever it is, and I'm raising the money and I'm building them and I'm holding them. Those are separate. If I run across Pulte that has an extra 100 houses, I can't buy those.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah. And here's
What
the
do you
thing.
think this is going to do in the long run to our rent prices? You think it's going to free up inventory?
I think it's going to take an awful long time to filter through the economy.
Me
It
too.
doesn't going to have the impact that a lot of people want it to. There's a lot of people that are not happy with this because they wanted that to force them to divest. That wasn't going to pass Congress either, right? The sausage making in government is never pretty. And so
In any business.
So they had to compromise on a few things. The build to rent thing, letting them keep them, that's probably good in a lot of ways. Allowing them to keep the 60,000 homes or however many homes each one owns, probably not. In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to hurt anything necessarily. I think
I
the
don't
problem
think it's going to be a big shift in our markets.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But interestingly, I do want to touch on the penalty because a lot of people are like, oh, they'll just pay the fine or whatever. The fine is astronomical. Okay.
Let's talk about that.
If they own 350 and they buy one more house, the fine is $1 million or 3 times the value of the home they purchased, whichever is greater.
Well,
that's a serious deterrent.
And
yeah,
when
these
you
companies have deep pockets, right? Deep pockets are deep pockets, but you can't take an asset. That asset over its lifetime might produce 150,000, 200,000 of value. If you're going to get 150 to 200,000, it's going to cost you $1 million in penalties. You're not doing that, right? You're just not going to do it. And it's the Treasury that does it, that's enforcing this, not HUD. The Treasury has real teeth. Those people go after people.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
They raise a lot of money in fines. So they're chomping at the bit to go after these guys because that's how they get paid, baby.
It's an interesting thing. We will definitely follow it. And if you'd like to hear more about the 21st Century Housing Act, then you can always go to @Florida Real Estate Insider on YouTube and check out Tom McNamara. He's got a lot of valuable information to share with us. Fortunately, he and I get to talk every Monday. He's always bringing valuable things to me and to my listeners. Thank you Tom for that. There's a whole lot more in this act. If you're interested in learning more about the act, you can go to our website. You can check it out on Tom's YouTube page. But there's a lot of moving parts on this. Some of it, I look at it, and when I read it, it sounds great. But it's one of those things, I read it, and it's like, how are you ever going to get that to make that happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. It's typical high-level government stuff, but it is a big bill, and it will have impacts at some level. So we'll see over the next few years if things improve or deteriorate or stay status quo, right?
Yep. So go ahead, subscribe to Tom's YouTube page, subscribe to Bruce Woodburn, the Lone Arranger. Lots to pick up there. And I appreciate you, Tom. We will see you next Monday.
We'll see you next Monday.